dedicated the rest of the.
Yeah. Well, I didn't need that much time. I'll even save some time for questions. So my name's Alon Perez, and I'm with Getting It Right for West Seattle. Have y'all heard of it? So, and actually Deb and Diane are both involved in it too. They come to the meetings, so feel free to chime in at any point. So I just wanted to give you a quick background for people who aren't familiar with Getting It Right for West Seattle and kind of where it came from. Are you familiar with the big proposed Whole Foods mega project that's supposed to be at the southwest corner of Fauntleroy and Alaska Junction? And if it's allowed to go in as is, it would be the largest multi-use retail development in the history of West Seattle, ever, that at least anyone's told me. And there's a lot to be improved there. And the way that this started is I was going to the Southwest Design Review Board meetings at the very earliest stages, and we continued through that process. I'm also a community organizer with USCW Local 21. We represent grocery store workers in West Seattle. And we had some obvious concerns about an eighth grocery store in a mile in. But that's where, you know, I started getting involved in the Southwest Design Review Board meetings, and then working through that process, and then going to the Seattle Design Commission meetings and through the entire review process. And at every meeting, we would see familiar faces of other people who tend to get involved in these things, and there was a lot to critique. There were a lot of suggestions for change, and not a whole lot changed. The developers were not responsive, and frankly, you know, the boards offered some suggestions, but didn't really say this has to change. And so the thing about this particular development, it is the biggest, and it also has a hook. Unlike a lot of development that's happening around us, I think everybody I talk to is feeling overwhelmed, regardless of what neighborhood they're in, whether it be Delridge or somewhere else, about types of developments that are coming in that don't seem to really fit right, or just not, people not addressing concerns that are being raised around parking or whatever it may be. This one is unique because it requires an alley vacation. There are two public alleyways on the property. It's the property with the Shell station and the funeral home, and the old Hewling lot. And there are two public alleyways there. And the developer wants the city to sell those alleyways to them so that they can develop it the way they want, which is basically to cover every square inch with development. And so the city, that has to be approved by the city council. It's a political decision. And so that is the interesting thing about this development, is not only is there a lot to dislike about it, whatever your issue is, whether it's parking, people who live in the community and worried about the park and hide, you know, just becoming more and more prevalent as more retail comes in with no parking provided for workers and construction workers, whether it be safety, whether it be traffic, walkability, open space, good jobs, affordable housing, design guru right over here. It's just ugly. There is a lot to dislike about this. So it really is a particular development that agitates quite a bit for people who with different issues at so many levels, and that we can change, because it is somewhat a political decision. And the city council, it's going to go to a hearing before the transportation committee, which is chaired by Councilmember Tom Rasmussen, who is kind of the de facto West Seattle representative. So on two fronts, he's very instrumental to the decision making, and then it has to go to a full vote before the city council. So Getting It Right for West Seattle is not anti-development for that piece of property. It needs to be developed, frankly, but we want it to be done right. And what we interpret as right is something, I actually have the official, what we define as smart development creates good jobs and affordable housing, vibrant, small and locally owned businesses, and a walkable, livable community. And so there's a lot that goes in, that's involved in all of those pieces, but basically something that fits, that people are excited about. And it's not that hard to do. I mean, really, it can be done. So So we started this coalition, and it's growing. Right now it's UCW 21 and Puget Sound Sage, Main Street Alliance, Feet First, the Laborers, and I'm sure there's an organization I'm forgetting, but there are organizations and then lots of small business owners that have signed on in support, and then just tons of individual West Seattle residents. And we know that what is right, what we consider right for that property, is not what's right for Delridge, and not what's right for White Center, and not what's right for High Point. Every community has their own interpretation of what's right. What we do feel is that the community has a voice. It should have a voice, and it should have equal weight to developers and potential tenants. And that's what we're saying, is that development should be more responsive to the needs of the community, and really it should be something that we're excited about. And so we've been going for, gosh, I don't know, 3 months, 6 months. We've been at this for a long time, but officially I don't know when the organization actually went live. There's been a lot happening. What we do know is that the development is going to go to a hearing not earlier than December, but maybe December or later. The Transportation Committee will review the alley vacation request. And what we're asking of the City Council is to not approve an alley vacation for these developers until they negotiate a community benefits agreement with stakeholders in the community, and we agree on something that will be widely accepted. You know, obviously not everybody's going to be happy, right? But something that is more widely accepted in the community than what's there right now. And so you can visit our website, you can sign on to the letter, you can come to the hearing in December or later, you can get involved. We welcome everyone to get involved. The next meeting is on Monday the 16th. Here's a flyer with that information. And something I also want to emphasize is that we did discuss, some conversation in our meetings. There is conversation around food justice, and that we are literally talking about an 8th grocery store being shoved down the throats of people at the junction who don't really want it or need it. And we've got Delridge, White Center, other communities that are struggling just to have one or a couple, right? So we do think that this is also a food justice issue, and that this community doesn't necessarily need a grocery store, but others do. And every community should have a voice in trying to bring what you need. So that is what we're up to. Amanda very kindly sent us your letter to address something that actually is one of the top issues of concern for folks who are involved with getting it right for West Seattle. We have a survey. We had an online survey, and it's totally not scientific, but we did have over 350 people complete it, and the survey results basically said the top concern is kind of that issue around traffic, transit, parking, and of course design and walkability. But traffic, transit, parking is a real issue, and it's all connected, right? With transit-oriented development, parking spots are being eliminated, which is okay. We know that the city has a goal for density, and that's part of the puzzle. But these developers are getting a windfall. It costs $25,000 a piece, according to Diane Minimum, per parking spot for developers to make space for parking spots. And that requirement has been virtually eliminated for some developers, and they weren't asked to give anything in return. And then they're building these developments and marketing high-rent apartments, saying it's accessible to transit. It's right next to the transit corridor, but there's no funding going into transit capacity. So you've got this big kind of collision, right? You've got not just flat, but decreasing transit capacity. You've got increased density, decreased parking spots. So if people bring their cars because they can't catch a bus, where are they going to park? They're going to park in the neighborhood or in front of small businesses who need those spots for their customers. So traffic, transit, parking, big issue for getting it right for West Seattle. We were really excited to see the letter that Amanda and others, I think with your group, have been working on drafting to address this with the city. And the one thing that we were hoping would be added to the letter I don't know how familiar, have you discussed this internally before?
This is the next, I've gotten
Okay.
a lot of feedback.
Oh, okay.
So,
We might as well merge the two.
Yeah,
because it's
so-
yeah, I mean, if you're at this point.
Yeah, at this
maybe
point,
if anybody has any
I
questions.
think we have a recommendation for the letter, but that can wait till later. Did I miss anything important? No? Okay. I'm okay.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, questions, if you have questions.
I have a question. So getting it right for West Seattle is basically dealing with this one development.
Correct.
How many more people would be interested in other developments around West Seattle in particular? How do you guys feel about branching out? I was at the Delridge meeting last night, and there was a lot of concerns about what's going on in Delridge. Same issues of the fact that the developers just don't really care about what's going on in the neighborhood. They're building, in particular, what I heard a lot of is with the stormwater and the sewer, is that they're building these houses up on the hillside to get a view, but it rolls downhill. And so there's no drainage, there's no way for the water to go anywhere, so it goes right into these people's backyards and floods them out. So getting it right for West Seattle, to me, sounds like a West Seattle-oriented organization.
You guys have a hell of a lot of momentum from everything I've seen.
Yeah, I mean,
And you shouldn't let it, whatever happens with this building in December or in spring, don't let go of that momentum.
No, we're actually like hoping that it will morph into something that goes beyond this development. We recognize basically that this one development, another thing that I forgot to mention, it's the biggest, there's a lot wrong with it, there's a hook. We can change it, we can have, a successful process here. And we feel that if it goes the way it's gonna go with no changes, it will set a precedent for all of West Seattle. We're gonna see these big, kind of like South Lake Union style, Ballard style developments plopping down in the middle of these, our communities. They don't fit anything else, they're huge. They have these national chain retailers where we, really value in our communities, small locally owned businesses.
What you're talking about there does affect Delridge.
Well, yeah,
It does affect Morgan.
absolutely.
There are
So
some of
we're-
us who are far in Arbor Heights who go over there, and it does make a difference to us too, but they directly
Yeah, well, from a standpoint of traffic.
To those two neighboring.
Right, traffic, and a lot of people go to the junction, right? People go to the junction because it's a great area. This will undermine small locally owned businesses. The produce stand, McPherson's produce stand right across the street, I don't know what they're gonna do if a Whole Foods moves in. But basically, to answer your question, yes, we are interested in this becoming more. It's just a matter of how much capacity do we have? And, will the momentum develop to
We need them on our side.
bring more people in? But everybody is welcome to participate, and we do want this to become a greater issue around West Seattle development overall and the role of the community having a voice, a real voice, and a real impact on development. And that developers, yes, we welcome you, but you need to bring something that's gonna make our communities better, not worse.
I don't know if you know this, but do you know where these developers are from? Are they largely out of town,
Yeah.
out of state even?
They're both like $1 million, Fortune, whatever corporations.
They're out of state, but in the case of the 4755 and the Whole Foods, it's Hewling property. So,
Well, that was sold to them. So it's now owned by Weingarten and Leonard Homes.
they put
Weingarten.
the deal together, right? The Hewling has put together different deals, and whether he's a partner or selling it on, but it's starting with him, and then different developers are going, oh, well, what isn't there? Hey, there's not a Whole Foods there, and they look and they figure out, oh, that little sweet spot is right
Well,
there.
it's really this, the developers, there's two developers. They're in a partnership of some type. So there's Lennar Homes, which is out of Florida. And they're a multi-million-dollar corporation. They're all over the United States. They're huge.
Yeah.
And then there's Weingarten is the retail developer. They're out of Texas. And Whole Foods is also out of Texas. I think they have a relationship, and so they kind of maybe come as a package. I don't know. But they do a lot of suburban strip mall work. And for both of these developers, this is kind of they don't have a lot of experience with urban infill.
Yeah.
This is new
Or
to
the
them.
architect.
And you can kind of tell, right? You can tell from the development. They're not all that accustomed to trying to fit something into an existing neighborhood.
They just got a deal on Randall, though.
What's that?
They just got a deal and ran with it, basically.
That's kind of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Lenore, I just saw a Business Journal article that I forwarded to you guys, didn't I?
Yep.
About from the multifamily executive newsletter that they, is it Missouri? That they have just,
Minneapolis.
it was all about that this traditional national home builder has now realized that the rent, what was it, choice to rent, they're calling them the choose to rent, the young kids. They're gonna market it to the young kids that are making $150,000 at Amazon, that don't need parking and don't need any room because they don't have any stuff. So they are doing a huge apartment development in another state, and it said how they are getting on the bandwagon. So this is their new thing.
It was luxury.
Yeah,
apartments,
luxury, yeah.
Just so we needed.
Yeah.
The Hewling comment was an important one, because Hewling owns, part of what you have to understand is how many properties in that area that Hewling owns. It's a massive amount.
Do you know?
And there's like 13 different properties.
Yeah.
No
But there's still more?
It's,
All
there's,
in
oh yeah,
the- all
there's,
in
They basically have a triangle.
there's tons, but
Ah.
the important, why Hewling factors in there so prominently and so importantly is that as they sell those properties, they get an exponential increase in sale value of the land the higher the buildings go. So they are attempting to, it is financially in their best interest to create these giant canyon
To buy off on
alleyways.
big, which is why I'm surprised, because I thought that they owned where the one-story drugstore wants to go.
CVS.
And-
Oh, no, it's another
That's
family.
across the
That-
street, right?
Is that
And
where
I thought that that was
yeah.
some of theirs, but
Yeah, it's another
I'm
family.
always surprised, like the
Yeah.
razor wire next to the fire station, that lot, Hewling.
Which property is the one that's gonna actually be the CVS? What's there for that?
What's there right now?
I think that's where the produce
That's the
stand
produce
is,
stand.
That's-
and
right.
Sweet Arrangements Consignment Store,
Right, the furniture
Yeah.
which
store
got
and
kicked
the-
out of the junction because
Right.
that building was being
Right,
redeveloped.
O'Connor.
They found a
Yeah.
great
Well, they
spot
got kicked
there.
off the Hewling property across the street.
Sure. Yeah,
Oh,
they
yeah.
had
They
their
were on the,
outfits.
yeah,
Yeah.
they were in the middle of that.
Because when I
Hewling-
discovered them, they were in the junction.
No.
And
No,
now
you guys
they're-
are talking about two different
No,
things.
Sweet Arrangements.
Oh,
You're
yeah,
talking
the
about
Westfield
the
produce.
Yeah.
There we go.
No.
How does the emergency legislation yesterday play into what you guys are doing?
Well, it
That is the
won't,
mega house one, right?
it won't
Well,
factor.
that's the
There
minimum.
were two of them.
That
There
was
minimum-
designed to, I think, impact the CVS, but the CVS is already vested, from what I
Oh, is it?
understand, so
That's the
it
challenge.
probably won't change the CVS.
Could the design review board thing?
You know, it could if, I used to be on the Southwest Design Review for about 4 years, from 2004 to 2009, and I still kind of like to go back and stick my nose into things that I think aren't following codes or design guidelines. But, so the board could take it upon themselves to beat them about. I know that that's sometimes been productive, and sometimes, such as in the case of the Admiral Safeway rebuild, didn't work. Yeah.
Okay.
Elena, I chair the Delridge Neighborhoods District Council, the eastern half of the peninsula. And we've kind of shelved it for now. But for several years, we're pursuing aggressively more grocery options for the Delridge corridor, unsuccessfully. And regarding what you're attempting to do, and you're mentioning the food deserts and food equality and geographic dispersity and things like that, on behalf of the council, while I can't say we would wholeheartedly endorse, Delridge usually doesn't wholeheartedly endorse anything, but I know that we would support you in that, and would be interested in having that conversation further.
Well, I think that that's something that, we were hoping that someone from some of our local food deserts would take advantage of this opportunity to speak to the council and say, look, I know that these are two unrelated issues, and if the developers choose not to put a Whole Foods here, it doesn't mean that they're gonna build a Whole Foods in Delridge. However, this is an opportunity to say, the city, you know, if you're gonna use city property to leverage and to encourage types of development, why can't it be in places that really do need a grocery store? And there are some limitations, I think, in the state's constitution on how much they can do, but, you know, it's like, they're asking for city property, so the city can go, yeah, no, not in this situation, but if you wanna do something at Delridge.
Well, we're selling Chris Hansen that one, dead-end street. I mean, we
Right.
twisted his arm for a 30-year commitment that he can't move the Sonics. So, I mean, there's no
Right.
reason we can't
It's
twist
all-
these guys.
anything
It's all
can
about
get
the-
put on
We think
hold.
that we do really believe this is an opportunity to raise this food justice issue with the city council. I mean, why not take advantage of the opportunity and say, look, this is
Yeah.
really backwards. It's like, why
If you're-
why is there?
Interesting thing
If
about
you're still
this-
looking for someone to champion that angle, come and talk to
Oh,
us.
absolutely, great, I will.
And I would talk with Nick too. I would, Tom Rasmussen is in many ways the de facto West Seattle representative. And he's also transportation, and you don't always feel, I haven't always felt like he was listening on transportation, except that the results have been forthcoming.
Right.
So, Tom, and even Peter Steinberg talks about the way Tom works. But he does hear, and he does do, and I think Nick would too. Sally Bagshaw might, if we want to talk to people on the council who, because Sally Bagshaw does take on those kinds of things. And I don't know who you know over in Delridge, but it sounds like you have the people power over there amongst yourselves to come in and
Yeah,
put some pressure on.
I think it's a
One or
good
two
angle to
folks.
this. I think it's a good
One or
opportunity.
two. I know some that you may or may not know, so, who might be persuaded.
So with that, it kind of all ties together, really. And getting it right for West Seattle is not just about developing, but it's about transit. And we've been talking, how we have gotten involved in it is we've just been talking a lot about Metro. And we've talked about the 17% cuts. We talked about Westwood Village now becoming the transit hub, which, good and bad things about that. There are good and bad things about that. We talked about the buses being cut out of White Center. There's lots of things that we're talking about transit. And when the 17% cuts came up, we hosted Metro. We said, come and talk. And they did. And, we got a lot of company line. But I thought we got a little bit of good feedback from Deanna. Along with that, though, we started thinking about what more can we do? And we, as a community council, what more can we do? And I had the crazy idea. And Joe seconded it, thanks.
Of a transit riders union.
Well, there's already out there, there's a transit riders union.
Essential.
However, what there isn't is a coalition of West Seattleites groups pushing a transit issue. There's been a lot of different groups at different times approaching that issue, first writing letters and that sort of thing, but there hasn't been a cohesive push from everybody to wave the flag over here in West Seattle. The viaduct is coming down. The viaduct is coming down, everybody. I don't know if people don't quite understand what that means in West Seattle, or if they're not facing the reality of what that's actually going to look like. But we are in huge trouble here, enormous trouble here, because it's already bad. The commute's already bad. They're already reducing the bus service. Where are the buses going to go? Do you guys know where the buses are going to go when the viaduct comes down? 4th Avenue South. Where are the cars going to go? 4th Avenue South. So, what? I mean, if you think about what's going to happen, it's going to be a total nightmare. We have no other option. Okay, we have the taxi. We have the water taxi. We have one other option. When we first started this letter, the letter went out with Metro as our objective and getting Metro funded. But I've gotten a lot of feedback from a lot of groups. And other people have actually written additional parts to our letter, or additional letters, or shared the letters that they've already written.
Where's the letter? Because I actually haven't.
You're right, it hasn't been given to the public
It's
yet.
only been lots of draft versions banging
Right.
around
Of
with ideas.
those people who we talked to.
Yeah, my objective last week was to send it out to the different community groups. I basically just went online and looked at people who had their information, and I was like, oh, there you
And the
are.
Department of Neighborhoods thankfully had a nice cohesive list of it.
Yeah, so we were able to just kind of go in. The objective there was to say, hey, is anyone interested in this? Are we the only crazy ones here? Because that might not work. And we're not, by any means. No, I'm shocked. I mean, HPAC was like, whatever you do, we're for it. Highland Park was like, whatever you're gonna do, we're involved, you can count on us. Getting it right from West Seattle, Elena, not only is she here, but she was like, hey, and there's money we can get the money from the developers. So we're talking about a real coalition. And what I think I'd like to see happen is we have another meeting with people who are interested in specifically the coalition between now and the end of the month.
It's gotta
And
be,
I'm thinking the 24th, the Tuesday the 24th. I don't know if that works for everybody, but it's a day that I'm proposing. Basically what we would do is we would take the draft letter, rehash the draft letter with the other comments from everybody else.
Can we get this place? Because the whiteboard's really nice.
Yeah, I'll find
Yeah.
out. I'll go, but before I
You know,
leave,
where do
I'll
you
ask
start?
them.
You
Yeah.
know, okay, what do we want, you know, here's section A, B, C,
Brainstorm,
yeah.
yeah. It ballooned from not just Metro, but what else can we get here? Let's use this opportunity to say, this is what we want. Let's ask for the moon. I mean, let's figure out an actual solution, not just complaining, but an actual solution or solutions to the problem. And be creative, like Elena said, there's creative, and then Elena, go ahead and please tell us what you have found, because it ties into what the creative solutions would be.
Yeah, we love the letter. I mean, it really lays out very nicely what the challenges are for West Seattle around transportation and how we get off of our little peninsula. We have only 3 bridges, right? And so it does a really good job of that. And the 2 focal points were on the city and the county to fund transit, not just maintain and stop the cuts, but, find a way to maintain adequate transit for the peninsula. And one thing that we were hoping would be added is we actually did some research into Seattle's transit master plan, and it actually has language in it that calls for creative solutions to transit, to finding funding for transit by leveraging TOD, transit-oriented development. And it goes through opportunities, different ways that developers can be taxed to help fund transit. And so getting back to this issue of Diane, this has been her issue, she has pounded away, is that these developers, that they're not required to build as many parking spots now as they used to be, minimum $25,000 a spot in their pockets, but they weren't asked to give anything in return. And they're marketing these high rent apartments with access to transit.
Took easy access to rapid ride.
Exactly.
so we would spend tax
So
dollars.
there are mechanisms, and so we were recommending just adding a paragraph that calls for the city to follow, the suggestions of Seattle's Transit Master Plan and identify new sources of funding. So it's not just us paying more taxes. And mechanisms employed by other cities to allow transit funding to better keep pace, such as transit impact fees, multimodal transportation impact fees for TOD. And, we found specific pieces in the master plan that supports that.
There's major precedent for this too, because I was looking around for this. I remembered seeing this language, the local improvement districts. Bellingham did this. What county is Bellingham? When they had their last vote for their funding on their version of Metro up there, and Hamilton didn't fund it, Bellingham basically said, such a screw you county, did one of these local improvement districts, taxed themselves, and prevented all the cuts except for, I think, some Sunday routes to their local Bellingham service.
And in San Francisco, they have precedent for just taxing developers. Every development that's, I think, non-retail developments all have to pay towards transit.
So yeah, this is all doable. I mean, the idea for this all came out of, I don't remember who said it originally, but what if, we just said, all right, so King County is screwed because of Olympia, whatever. let's just tax ourselves and to stop the Seattle-only service from getting cut, which doesn't help White Center, doesn't help Shoreline or anyone else, but
But it does.
it does in a way.
It does. It does, especially White Center, because it's across the street.
Yeah.
It would be,
It'd be good for them.
yeah.
But we think if we attach it to new development, especially transit-oriented development, where there's density coming in, it will come with transit capacity.
Yeah.
It will come with funding. So tying those two pieces together, I think helps mitigate the harm that these developments bring if there's no increased transit capacity to make up for the increased density.
Plus it makes them choose between parking and transit taxes.
Right,
Maybe you want to
Which,
pay transit.
and that transit wins either way then.
Yep.
right.
Well, so,
Mostly.
Well, so, it's a very interesting subject. It's timely. I find this is a timely thing. We have an election year, guys, and it's really important that we bring these things up in election years to our officials, the people who are going to be running our city for the next 4 years.
In the notes on the on Facebook, it said, the plan is to present this to the to the mayoral candidates.
Right.
We wanted to get, ballots go out, what, October first week, something like that? I mean, you get everybody on the hook, all 9 council members, all the candidates, Murray and McGinn, what do you guys think of this? Right
So
before
What's
the
your
So
election,
position?
we're
before
under
the
a
ballots
little bit of
drop.
a deadline, is
Yes,
what
we
I
are.
would say.
Which is a good thing,
Yeah.
because the more we talk about it, the less action will happen. Which is why we'd like to meet on the 24th, get the letter to them on the 30th, October,
Yeah, less Seattle process, more action.
right.
Ooh.
Yes, yes,
I like the mayor.
yeah, and I think we can do that, and I think it's feasible. And again, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're just the hub with the spokes and putting it together. That's kind of how I look at it.
Reminding them they have the weapons already in their hands, they just have to use it.
Absolutely.
So the other one I was going to say was the two mayoral candidates coming to West Seattle.
That's right.
And if you stack the room with a few
Next
people that,
Tuesday,
yeah,
1 p.m.
Oh, God, I forgot
Southwest
about
Seattle.
that already.
yeah.
With senior
That's
center.
at the senior
Yep.
center.
So
Senior
if you
center.
stack the room with a couple people willing to ask transit questions.
Just a couple.
Well, I mean, I can't either, so if someone
can't.
wants to go in my stead, oh no.
My,
Will you
Murray-
behave,
Mur-
or?
Murray doesn't know me, and Mike McGinn will just glare at me anyway, so that's, just, all I have to do is be in the room.
Great.
Can I ask you a couple questions?
Absolutely.
Have you, how do I ask these? So what tact or what relationship do you see with the district councils and this coalition?
Well, ideally, I'd like the district councils to say, yeah.
Have you guys talked with Chaz Redmond?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
And I
so
have-
Chaz is on board with this?
Chaz is more than on board.
Chaz was
I figured he would.
enthusiastic.
Yeah, well,
Chaz-
Chaz is enthusiastic about, the sun comes up.
What-
He gets enthusiastic.
Him and I in the same room would be an explosion
Yeah,
of fun.
okay. That's great. I just wanted to make sure because I know that he or Sustainable West Seattle had brought in the transit forum last year.
That's
and
right.
that's,
And he
I think
sent
some of
me
you were
a
there.
fabulous
Great.
letter, basically thanking us for picking up the gauntlet and saying, this is an additional element to what I'd like to see, what
Great.
I would say was Sustainable West Seattle
Okay.
I'd like to see. So we are definitely, and what he has to say, it blew my mind a little bit because he's talking about the transit master plan recommending a Ballard crossing over Duwamish Crossing. And what he did is he said, okay, well, these are the routes that go to West Seattle. These are the routes that go to Ballard using the Ballard Bridge. So using the West Seattle Bridge, not First Avenue Bridge, but West Seattle Bridge and the Ballard Bridge. And it's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 30 to 1, 2, 3, 6, 9, 12. It's like 30 routes to 12.
30 routes to about.
30 routes to West Seattle using the West
Okay.
Seattle Bridge and 12 and this is in 2010. This is before the C line and the D line. That blows my mind, because that to me is saying, oh, West Seattle, we don't care about you
You don't
guys.
need that.
You don't need that. Look at all those bus lines that you have. Except the viaduct is coming down. Like, sorry, that just
All right, so I'm glad that you are,
Chaz was one of my
Checking with Chaz,
first.
that's good.
Yeah.
Chaz was one of the first people we
Good.
actually contacted.
This
Okay.
blew my mind, and this is gonna be a fight for after the next meeting when we talk about happy stuff at Roxhill Park. But no, these numbers, I was actually pretty, excuse my French, fucking pissed when I saw this. 42.9% more riders per day go over the West Seattle Bridge than the Ballard Bridge. Why the hell are we spending $2 million to study Link to Ballard? Is it just to appease the developers that bought
Yes.
Market Street? I mean,
Yes. Yes.
that there's no reason for light rail to be looked at in Ballard before down here. There's more of us. There's more
Is it
riders.
42%?
42% more traffic.
Would you send a copy of that, Chaz's other stuff so we can see it?
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Well, we could send a link out. It's
Well,
public.
yeah, we
on
can make the public-
Sustainable
it's
website.
out of Sustainable West
Yeah,
Seattle.
it's a
Exactly.
blog
Oh,
post.
okay.
It's their.
Oh, I thought it was a personal letter he wrote.
No, August-
Oh, okay.
They had this. We had these numbers in August 2012.
Oh, probably with his forum.
Yeah.
That's correct. That's exactly where it came out of.
Okay.
I never saw those before. That blows my mind. That we have 40% more traffic volume than
Well,
Ballard.
and Chaz is on the Southwest District Council, and then the other, has close relationships with Delridge folks, but to bring to bring the whole of West Seattle into it, I hope that everyone
Well,
can jump on board,
you know-
although I don't know how that could happen with your timeline, but that's okay.
I
Just
have
curious.
I have a mindset to put together a graphic, an actual little movie, be 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. I work in post-production. I can make this happen. Of what will happen when the viaduct comes down.
Oh, we've seen it.
No, no, no.
No, this is the earthquake
What I would like to do is I would actually like to pick a bus stop.
That's not good.
Let's say pick a bus stop on Delridge, on the 120. You're gonna pick a bus stop on the 120, and you're gonna get on it. And it's gonna take you, you know right now that it'll take you 22 minutes to get to your stop. When the viaduct comes down, it will take you 42 minutes or 52 minutes to that same bus, because that's what's gonna happen with all that traffic. And I think if people actually see a visual, like a GIF, it doesn't have to be anything fancy, but like make it go viral. I mean, what kind of day and age are we living in? We're living in an age of like memes of what will happen when the viaduct comes down.
That's true, we
you
didn't
know?
really have that when with the earthquake.
I mean, I think to me, it's a matter of just making people realize what's going to happen. They don't have to do anything, but they definitely have to say, I'm on board.
But there's one other problem too. On top of all the development, viaduct goes away. So does everything that's red on this map
Yeah, everything that's right.
with the transit cuts. So take away, a quarter of our bus volume in West Seattle, take away the viaduct, replace it with a tunnel, add in all the new residents coming into West Seattle, which is great for the region, but not so great for us already in, whatever.
I'm laughing because it's not funny.
It's just, it's this whole like compound situation that's going to screw
I'm
us
sorry, I'm
with
sitting
any
here
other
thinking
neighborhoods.
about the governor's talk of a special session, if we can pull together votes to talk specifically about transit, and we'll see what happens.
And that's only partly,
That's
that's only
great.
partly the thing
We'll
that
see what
NC's
happens
doing, because that's
there.
going to be for everything, for bridges, the whole region.
Yeah.
Which
the whole-
we all need. I mean, that's not that we
I mean,
don't.
that's over our pay grade.
Well, no.
Right.
What? Are you kidding
We
me?
want,
Yeah.
we at least want the local option on
Yeah.
taxation, which is what
Exactly.
we're putting in.
Right, so all of these things I think are really important. So to answer your question, force, by force. I feel by force. I feel by an absolute conviction of what will really happen, that Delridge Council and Southwest Council have a vested interest in putting their weight behind this. That will motivate them. We get a nice crafted letter with all of these different groups involved. You
Well,
know,
from Morgan's perspective, we meet in September, or we meet in October, so we're only quarterly. Well, all those community groups that meet monthly, knock yourselves out, we only meet quarterly. But I'm glad to share this letter with our area and convene the board meeting and get something in advance, I'm just
That would be
offering
great.
that.
And I'll contact my, neighborhood council.
Perfect. That's fabulous.
And the other, there was one other thing too, we had bounced around the idea of, the city seems to be or somewhat responsive to a couple things that some neighborhoods have done with change.org for use of like the traffic calming, you have to get so many residents and a couple of other things, like we need more police presence here, we need a circle here, that sort of thing. And they've gone based on that. So if you have a change.org for your specific little niche thing with 200 people, the city will come in and do whatever has to be done. We were thinking about doing something like that for this. So not just the groups, open it up the floodgates, all of us sign up. You know, get it on, Facebook, get it on Reddit, get it on all these places.
West Seattle blog.
West Seattle blog.
Speaking of.
All day?
But yeah, because then if we turn around, hey, you know what, there's all these groups, in West Seattle that have signed up for this. Now these groups, represent, I don't know, let's say, 80,000 potential people. Then you got another 40,000 people, 20,000 people on this website, if all things work out right. And then we could still use this to pressure them beyond, this drop dead date that we have for the election. Because then we turn around, what if the Southeast people end up wanting to get into this as well, just in general, for the transit side of it,
We're not the only ones losing our.
Then the ballot people get involved, everybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, this could turn into
Big snowball.
So as far as this goes, I think there's, and every time it comes up in a public setting, the response, there's been a lot of response, that's very ambitious. It's a very ambitious undertaking. I don't really see it that way. The basic, if you strip it down to the core concept here, it is, let's pick one thing that all of us can universally agree on and not really have to argue about, band together and demand change on. And that's really all that's being discussed. And this particular, and maybe long-term, long horizon is, we start taking on other things and we start coming up with more involved ideas, plans, demands. But for now, as a starting point, we begin by saying West Seattle has been neglected by the city on a transit platform for a very, very, very long time, and all of West Seattle is putting you on notice that this needs to change effective immediately. We expect your results come election time or whatever. I mean, it's really no more challenging than that at this stage. It's just everyone agreeing and then putting notice that.
I think that's very clear when you listen to somebody like my wife, who's lived we're in her childhood home, so she's lived here all her life, and says, of Arbor Heights, it's always the bastard stepchild as far as transit was concerned.
The library will close in
And
30
I have a
minutes
feeling
at
a
8
lot of
p.m.
people throughout
Please note that
West
staff
Seattle
will
feel
begin to
that
collect
way
loose materials for
on
reselling,
transit, so you
so
do
please
have
keep
a-
items that you wish to borrow near you.
It is
Thank you.
something that we can agree on a great deal.
Like I said, the response, I haven't followed up with everybody, but from the people I did send it to, the response that we got was just really heartening. I don't know how else to put it. It was like, I knew we were on the right track by the responses that we were getting. There wasn't a lot of, oh, you're crazy, or no, this is ridiculous. It was like, actually, your letter's great, and I want to add stuff to it, because I think it's really, that's what we're looking for. And I think now it's just a matter of crafting an actual letter, making sure we're touching on everybody's points. We're obviously going for the same thing. And then sitting with the Sallys, sitting with Tom. I had a.
I'm sorry, I just wanted a quick reminder that the meeting closes in about 14.
Yes, yeah, thank you.
We weren't kidding.
And 8 seconds.
Sorry, that I totally distracted you.
Yeah. Everybody can
Oh,
get
but, right, that, what it led to, and the one thing that I was thinking about last night, I'm thinking about this a lot, probably too much, playing on the pulse of it. Blitzing, doing a blitz of the council, of everybody doing a blitz at the same time, same day, scheduling meetings face to face. Diana and I talked about this last night, of actually having representatives of all of us of the Transit Coalition, okay, we're all gonna make a meeting for October 15th, sometime during the day, and you're gonna meet with Tom, and you're gonna meet with Richard, and you're gonna meet with this, and we all just go and say, hey, this is what we're doing. Getting it out there and forcing the issue. I mean, face to face, it's a lot harder for people to poo-poo you or, brush you off. So that's gonna be part of the meeting, the Transit Coalition meeting, is, hey, what are some creative ways that we can push this and make it happen? So,
Are you, another quick question, or is this letter getting into any of the relationship between Metro and Sound Transit? Or the dysfunctional relationship
know.
between Metro and Sound Transit?
I know that Sound Transit just got $24 million from the feds.
And they can't. I just remember talking with them with the C line and the 560 changes.
Right.
And Sound Transit, were so scared of what Metro would say. And
That's interesting.
yeah,
Like from what do you mean by that?
and I know some of these folks from my previous career, but they were just very resistant to working together.
So what are they
That's
afraid
like
of?
It's just the fact that they weren't eager to work together.
I see.
Oh, that's
to
Metro's
be-
jurisdiction,
I see what you
and we
mean.
can't go there.
Right.
Whereas they're, yeah,
Well,
Metro, but
that's
Sound
a-
Transit squeezes
that-
everybody.
that's
And
a-
what
Exactly.
else do we have in West Seattle of Sound Transit
Where
besides
five-
just the
the
560?
About 10 feet of 560 runs into
that's
it.
true.
No, but
Right, it
Sound
must-
Transit
right.
ultimately squeezes everybody from Snohomish
Well, they
to
squeeze us for money, but they don't get it.
Lakewood, at least.
And Amanda, I'll get you contact information for, I think her name is Katie Wilson, the president of Seattle Transit Union.
Right.
You haven't already been in touch with her?
I have been in touch with her.
Oh, good.
I know her.
Because she has some ideas. I chatted with her a little bit.
That is part, I mean, again, I just want to create a cohesion of people who are all for the same thing. I know that Katie's a lot for the justice part of it too, which is really important. So I think we have a lot of angles that we can make. But what I really want to build that West Seattle coalition before I start bringing in some of the outside organizations, because I just feel like the stronger we are, and the more cohesive our message is, then it can be championed.
You should
By
like
people like
run
Katie.
the letter by a few people who are
Yeah.
very familiar with the issue, just to make sure just to get their
Yeah,
sense of,
yeah, once we get that final
because they
letter
have a good
formed,
sense of like how that all went.
Well, yeah, that'll probably
Right.
happen at the 24th meeting, so what we
Exactly.
should probably do is start like an email discussion, just, hey, you are all the involved parties, all the different groups.
Yeah, everyone who
you know,
contacted me, I'm gonna,
to get everybody here or into some other place so we can have that meeting on the 24th, and that's when the final, are we okay, this paragraph, just,
yeah,
through
hash
it.
it out. Yeah.
It might be good to think too about signage, like the singular, I don't know what the singular sign would be, but if you look at what's happened with the $15 minimum wage sign, that people
Like
have
a logo,
taken
yeah.
to city council meeting in mass, and they've
Right.
gone downtown in mass, and it's been very effective
Right,
with that one message, that one visual, that it even ended up on the front page.
yeah.
Can a graphic designer turn like the West Seattle Peninsula into a
So what would our particular message be to be able to take?
Sorry.
Absolutely.
Even if
No,
it's
no,
not like a
easy.
man, or
Well,
if they can't ask questions, we can have
A
signs.
logo.
Couple of fingers
Right.
right
It kind of looks like a hand.
Yeah, no, I meant the other way.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Yeah, well, let's be
You're
nice.
number one.
The other group that I
So
want to
there are
talk
many
to
ways
is,
to do this.
This is Seattle
Yeah.
Subway. I don't know if you guys
Yeah.
are familiar with the Seattle Subway. And they are talking about basically using the existing light rail and expanding it. Surprise. I don't know if they're specifically talking about Sound Transit though. So we'd have to find out. But that's an
I can ask Ben.
interesting weight. I almost feel like we can use it somehow. I don't
I
know
know.
how, but
I know.
we can use Sound Transit to leverage. I don't know, that's gonna make my wheels turn for a
Do you
few
know anybody
days.
who might have ideas? on
I
that
do know the
question?
Seattle subway guy, and I'd be a little bit hesitant only because he's so gung-ho on the subway, it's kind of like the anti-bus.
Well,
So if we can get it,
but for, no,
Well, yeah, like
this is
you
gonna be blasphemy maybe, but we could use that. Because we are going to lose a major roadway. So if we can eliminate the buses by having some kind of rapid transit, some kind of light rail, or to cut, I'm all for that, because again, what you're doing is you're taking vehicles off the road that doesn't exist anymore. So if you're taking the vehicles off the road with something else, yes, please let's do that. Because I think, again, being creative about it is going to serve us a lot better than trying to force more buses on the road.
But we probably should, for this letter, skip over bringing in the light rail discussion, just because it's an extra angle.
Well, I think we should talk more about that on the
Yeah.
24th, because I'm probably going to be pushing a little bit for at least a mention of it, because it creates an alternative solution as well, a creative solution.
Well, and it's the long term, because that's gonna be a good 10 years off.
Oh,
We
yeah.
need something
Yeah,
now.
I mean,
Yeah.
we could probably spend the next 10 years arguing over whether it should go
Yeah.
down 35th or Delridge.
Oh, yeah.
I think it should go.
I mean, the subway lines are.
Or
all
come
over
across,
South.
or come across the West Seattle Bridge, or come across
Roxbury.
Roxbury.
No, I'd say go down Delridge all the way down Ambach, hook back up with Tukwila.
Yeah.
Well, that's pie in the sky stuff right there.